Have you ever witnessed a love so quiet, so gentle, yet so powerful, it feels like time itself pauses in its presence? Maybe it was an older couple walking side by side, their fingers loosely intertwined, not for balance, but for connection. Maybe you noticed the way he looked at her when she wasn't watching, like she was still the only woman in the room, or the way she softly touched his arm as he spoke, grounding him without saying a word. There's something profoundly moving about love that has endured, worn smooth by time, not worn out by it. It speaks without noise, it holds without force. And if you're like many men over 50, maybe you've wondered, what makes that kind of love last? Why does it seem effortless for some, while others, no matter how hard they try, feel emotionally miles apart from the woman they care about? You see, some men give everything, gifts, advice followed to the letter, every effort to do things right, but still feel like they're reaching out across a great distance. There's a longing to connect, but the spark seems buried. The emotional closeness they crave, just out of reach. But here's the secret no one tells you. It's not about trying harder. It's about understanding deeper. Today, you'll hear from a remarkable 76-year-old woman named Melanie, whose insights have quietly changed the way thousands of men show up in love. Her words don't come from theory. They come from the lived experience of a heart that has felt the fullness of love, its beginnings, its struggles, its quiet triumphs. And what she reveals isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about the small, consistent moments that most people miss. She tells a story, one that still brings a mist to her eyes, about a simple gesture from her late husband. Not expensive, not dramatic, but it held more emotional weight than any anniversary trip or heartfelt speech. That single act, she says, brought her closer to him than anything else ever had, and you'll hear it soon. When you do, it might just change how you think about love. Forever. So stay with me. Listen closely, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Because sometimes, it's the quietest gestures that speak the loudest truths. Melanie is 76, and though her steps are slower now, there's a glow in her eyes that only comes from a life fully lived, and a heart that has loved deeply. She carries with her a kind of wisdom that you don't find in books or movies, but in the quiet, honest moments that most people overlook. When she speaks about love, it's not with fluff or fantasy, but with a grounded warmth that makes you lean in closer. Once, a younger man confided in her that he was doing everything to impress his wife, but nothing seemed to work. Melanie just smiled and said gently, "She doesn't need you to impress her, she needs you to be present." When he looked confused, she added, "It means making her feel safe enough to take her armor off." That one sentence stayed with him, and now it stays with us. Because true love isn't about proving yourself. It's about creating a space where she can soften, breathe, and be herself. For many women, connection begins long before touch. It begins with being truly seen, listened to, and understood. That kind of presence isn't loud, but it's powerful, and once she feels it, she starts to open like never before. Melanie often said that the biggest mistake a man can make is thinking he already knows what a woman wants. She chuckled softly when a younger man once boasted, "I know what women like." Her reply was gentle but firm. "No, dear, you knew what one woman liked. That difference," she explained, "changes everything. Every woman is a world of her own, shaped by time, experience, emotion, and age. What touched her deeply at 40 may feel different at 65. A word that once lit her up may now pass by unnoticed. Women are not puzzles to be solved once. They are stories that evolve. Melanie's own husband, late in their years together, discovered something small that changed everything. He began placing a soft kiss on her stomach each night, not out of habit, but as a way to say, "I see you still." It wasn't about passion, it was about presence. That single gesture, she said, meant more than any grand romance. It told her she was still being noticed, still cherished. So don't assume, don't repeat. Ask, watch, listen, be willing to. Learn her again, as if for the first time. The effort may be quiet, but the impact she promises is immeasurable. Melanie often reflected that the quiet undoing of many relationships wasn't betrayal or anger. It was impatience. In her words, love doesn't shout. It listens. It doesn't rush. It waits. She saw how many men, especially after 50, felt an invisible pressure to perform, to prove themselves, to fix things quickly. And she saw how many women, carrying the quiet changes of age, heartbreak, or hormonal shifts, didn't need someone to fix them. They needed someone to simply stay. Patience, she believed, was not a passive thing. It was active love. It meant waiting an extra moment while she gathered her thoughts. It meant holding her hand through silence without needing to fill it. It meant honoring her, not tonight, with tenderness instead of disappointment. Melanie said that trust doesn't grow from grand gestures. It grows in stillness, in the spaces where nothing is being demanded. When a woman feels emotionally safe, something inside her softens. Her body, her voice, even her breath moves differently. It's in that space, quiet, gentle, unhurried, that true closeness is born. So when in doubt, don't fill the silence. Don't rush the moment. Just be there. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can offer her isn't a solution. It's your still, steady presence. Melanie believed something that too many men forget as they age, that with each passing year, your value doesn't fade, it deepens. She often watched men in their 60s trying to recapture their youth with flashy clothes, expensive gadgets, or exaggerated confidence, believing that's what women wanted. But she would smile gently and say, "That's not what we're drawn to, not anymore." What touched a woman's heart most, especially after 50, wasn't the performance, it was the presence. A calm man with warm eyes, who could listen without interrupting, who carried himself with quiet confidence that to her was deeply attractive. Melanie often reminded older men that they carried something younger men didn't: wisdom from pain, grace from mistakes, and the quiet strength of someone who's seen life in all its shades. She once told a grieving widower, "A woman doesn't need fireworks. She needs to know that when the storms come, your hand will still be there, steady and sure." That kind of man doesn't chase validation. He offers safety. So if you've ever wondered whether you've lost your appeal with age, know this: your steadiness, your depth, your earned gentleness, those are gifts that grow more magnetic with time. You haven't lost value. You've become rare. Melanie believed that real connection was rarely found in fireworks or grand gestures. It lived in the soft, unspoken moments most people overlook. She often said, "True intimacy isn't something you build with big declarations. It's built in the quiet, ordinary moments when no one else is looking. Folding laundry together, washing dishes side by side, or simply sharing a quiet glance across the room. Those were the places where love grew roots." One night, during a thunderstorm, her husband reached out with no words, no reason, and whispered, "I'm glad I'm next to you." That single sentence, spoken in stillness, moved her to tears. There was no performance, no script, just presence. It told her she was enough, and in that moment she felt deeply seen. Melanie often reminded those who would listen that real intimacy isn't a goal, it's a rhythm. It's in the way you brush your hand along her back as you pass, the way you remember her favorite line from a film, the way you let silence stretch without needing to fill it. Love isn't waiting at the top of some emotional mountain. It's walking with her, slowly and consistently, through the beauty of the everyday. Melanie never believed you had to master 100 techniques to create a meaningful love life. In fact, she often said the most powerful tools were simple, thoughtful, and rooted in care. "Drink more water," she'd laugh gently. it helps more than you think. Your body feels better, your mood lifts, and your energy rises. She believed physical readiness started with how you cared for yourself long before you touched someone else. And when it came to touch, she encouraged small experiments, a blindfold, not to excite the senses wildly, but to help you and your partner focus. Without sight, the simplest caress becomes more tender, more intentional. She adored the spooning position, not for its novelty, but because it allowed you to feel your partner's breath, to match it with your own. She spoke about oils too, not for sensation alone, but for care, scented, soft, slow. But beyond all these things, what mattered most to Melanie was the why behind your touch. She said, "Don't touch to get something, touch to give." That was her truth. Your hands, the same ones that carry groceries, fix leaky faucets, and cradle newborns, those hands, when guided by love and care, become something sacred. Melanie believed that after 50, a woman's heart longs for something deeper than admiration. It longs to be truly felt. She would often say, "At this stage in life, we're not looking to be dazzled. We want to be understood." Women who have spent decades as caregivers, professionals, mothers and healers, carry both quiet strength and quiet sorrow. Their bodies may be tired, their hearts may hold memories of being overlooked, rushed, or misunderstood. What they crave most is presence, the kind that listens without interrupting, touches without agenda, and sees them beyond the surface. Melanie's husband once looked at her in the soft light of evening and said, "You're more beautiful now because I've seen your soul through the seasons." That simple sentence meant more than years of gifts or praise. It told her that he had witnessed her fully and still chose her deeply. She reminded men that their tenderness, their ability to truly pay attention, was their most attractive quality. You don't need to be younger, faster or flashier. You need to be real, steady, and emotionally awake. If you've ever wondered whether you still matter, Melanie would smile and say, "More than ever, now is when she truly sees you." Melanie never shied away from the real conversations. She understood that intimacy, especially as we age, isn't always smooth or simple. There are aches that didn't used to be there, moments that don't unfold as planned, and changes in the body that sometimes feel like they create distance. But to her, these weren't roadblocks, they were invitations. If something hurts, change the position, use pillows, go slower. It's not about pushing through discomfort, it's about honoring each other's needs with care. If a moment ends sooner than expected, she said, smile, laugh together, then try again with curiosity, not pressure. She believed that when a man lets go of the pressure to perform and chooses instead to be emotionally present, something far more intimate begins. And when hormonal shifts bring emotional highs and lows, she saw them as windows, chances to hold each other closer, to listen more, and to offer softness in place of solutions. Her favorite line, repeated many times, was simple but profound. The struggle isn't the end, it's the beginning of a new kind of closeness. Every challenge, when met with tenderness, becomes an opening to something deeper. And that, she believed, was the heart of real connection. When Melanie was asked what brought her closest to her husband, not during the early days of love, but in the quiet years that followed, she didn't hesitate. Her eyes softened with memory as she said, "He used to read to me. Every week, out loud, not because I needed it, not because I asked, but because he wanted to share something that moved him." There was no performance in it, no grand romantic gesture, just his voice, steady and warm, filling the room with poetry, articles, sometimes even parts of books he thought she'd enjoy. And every time he did it, she felt something settle in her heart. She felt chosen, not for how she looked, not for what she gave, but simply for being the one he wanted to share his world with. That, to Melanie, was love in its purest form. She often reminded others that connection doesn't need to be loud or extravagant. It needs to be real. It needs to be consistent. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to know all the answers. You just have to show up again and again with your whole heart in the smallest of moments. That's the kind of love that stays. If you're still here, I want to thank you, not just for watching, but for opening your heart to something deeper. Melanie's wisdom wasn't just about relationships. It was about how to live with more care, more presence, more love. So I ask you now, what spoke to you the most? Was it the reminder that love is quiet and steady, or that the smallest gestures often hold the most meaning? If this message stirred something in you, drop a 1 in the comments. And if what you long for now is emotional safety, the kind that builds real closeness, comment safe, because this journey doesn't end here. There's so much more to explore, and this space is here for that, for the man who wants to love with wisdom, lead with heart, and connect with the kind of depth that outlives time. Keep coming back. More stories, more insights, and more honest truths are on the way, because love doesn't grow old, it grows wiser. And so do you. If you believe men deserve to understand the quiet power of connection, please like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe. You're not starting over, you're starting deeper.